Hello everyone, good morning. I'm Varun. In this demo, I would like to show how to consume a RESTful web service with AngularJS. Backend I'll be using is MySQL database. As I told you, the frontend is AngularJS. I'll be integrating the frontend with the backend using Spring Boot framework, which provides facilities such as RESTful web services, JPA, and Hibernate. Yeah, this is about the technologies I'll be using for this demo. One more thing, I'll be using Eclipse Oxygen IDE for this particular demo. One can download the Eclipse IDE from this particular URL. And MySQL, if you're a beginner, I suggest you to download the MySQL Workbench from this particular link. What is the advantage of MySQL Workbench? If you see my screen, it gives a nice pictorial or visual representation of the database tables. Uh, for example, for this demo, I would like to create a employee table. So there's already an existing table, so I'll just drop it. So you can right click it, drop table, and drop now. So these are the advantages of MySQL. It gives a UI representation of the table wherein you can drop tables and alter the tables. Also, you can execute the queries. So yeah, that's one point. I'll be running this application on Apache Tomcat Server 8.5. So please download the Apache Tomcat Server 8.5, and the Java version I'll be using is 8. Alright, so that's about the introduction. Let's begin with the development of the demo from scratch. Once you download the Eclipse, and it will be a WinZip file. Once you unzip it, it will be in this format. So just click on eclipse.exe. Click on run. Please, it will take few seconds for it to open or for it to prompt the workspace. Meanwhile, the method I'll be following in this demo is that first I will develop the AngularJS files or the AngularJS files required for this demo. Such as registering or creation of the module, also calling of the ng resource module, which will be used to call the RESTful web service or the web API, and the various CRUD commands such as save, update, create, and delete of the employees. So I'll first create the AngularJS code, or I'll show the AngularJS code. Once it is done, I will show the code of Java classes such as building of the model class, then the service class, and then repository or the DAO and the controller. So this will be my approach in this particular demo. Okay, so when you click on the eclipse.exe, it will prompt you to select a directory as a workspace. You can select an existing directory, or you can create a new one. I'll be creating a new one for this one. So I'll just say go to C drive, make new folder, Angular REST API demo, enter, and click OK. So now we have created a new workspace and click on launch. Please give few seconds for the Eclipse to launch this workspace. Okay, so this is how the welcome page will be in the Eclipse IDE once you launch the workspace. Just close the welcome page, and the first step we do is create the Maven project. Go to File, New, click on Maven project. In case you don't find this Maven project in this drop down, you can go to Other, go to the section called Maven, and click on Maven project. Click next. In the first screen, it will ask you to select project name and location. Please leave the defaults as it is. Do not select anything here. Click on next. In the second screen, it will ask you for select an archetype. So in the filter, please type web app and select this group ID and the artifact ID. Click next. So we need to give the group ID. I'll give the group ID as com dot let's start coding, and in the artifact ID I'll give the name as AngularJS REST API demo. Just give this one Angular. This group ID and artifact ID can be anything. For my demo, I'm giving these particular names. But if you want to give another name, you are as well welcome. So yes, so after giving the group ID and artifact ID, press finish. And one can observe on the right hand side corner on the bottom, the project is being created. The Maven project is being created. So please hold on until the project is created. Okay, so now the Maven project is created. This is where the Java resources, if you expand this, the Java resources is the place we will write all our Java coding, the class file, the coding where the class files where the coding will be present, and the resources which will contain application.properties file. And if you just scroll down or go down, there's a folder called source. In that is a folder called web app, and in this web app we will write or we will include our AngularJS files and the front-end files. Basically this is the place we will include our front-end files. All right, so as mentioned to you before, I'll be starting with, in this demo I'll first write the AngularJS. I'll first complete the AngularJS coding. So on the web app, right click on new, click on folder, click app and click finish. Alright, after we click finish, we'll first create the AngularJS file wherein we register the module and the ng resource to call the REST web API. So right click on app, new, file, give the name as app.js. Click finish. Here give where app equals angular.module double quotes crude app square bracket single quotes ng resource and so what we are doing is we are registering a module, and also we are passing the ng resource. This will be responsible for calling the REST API. So please save it. All right, the next step is to create or call the factory or create the factory. So for that we create another file, right click on app, go to new file, here give the name as employee.service.js. Click finish. Okay, here we write the code angular.module open brace the crude app in single quotes dot factory open bracket in the single quotes, give this as employee comma employee, close this particular sentence. All right, next, employee dot inject equals square bracket dollar resource and semicolon. Next, create a function employee to which you pass the resource we will pass the resource here. Okay, then here we'll write where resource URL equals in single quotes API employee / ID and semicolon. Click enter, then type return $resource to which you pass resource URL which we just created, comma, then you open a bracket in a single quotes to give update and colon, give method as put close this, save it. So this is where we have created the factory to which we have passed a resource and we have created a function and we have defined a URL, and also please take note of the syntax. Okay, next we create the controller, which is the AngularJS controller. So the controller I'll be defining is right click on file, new file, give the file name as general dot controller dot js, click finish. Okay, again here we call angular dot module, I'll define crude app dot controller, here I'll pass general controller comma general controller and semicolon. Okay, again to this controller we have to inject scope and employee, so I'll write general controller dot inject equals square bracket single quotes dollar scope, then single quotes employee and semicolon. Okay, next we define function general controller. I'll just copy this name to this. Okay, function general controller define scope and followed by employee. Okay, here I define dollar scope dot employees equals employee dot query dot scope dot employee equals open brace flower brace. Okay, here scope dot button text equals submit and okay, first we define the save method, which is dollar scope dot save employee equals function here if scope dot employee dot id not equals undefined. Okay, undefined. Here we write employee dot update scope, comma, employee, comma, function. Here we write scope dot employees equals employee dot query, scope dot employee equals here again we write the same thing. Okay, semicolon. Next we define else. Okay, in else again the same thing, employee dot instead of update I'll be using the save, to which I'll pass the scope employee, employee dot query employee. I don't need this, so I'll just remove this. So with this my save employee is done. Right, the next step is to update an employee, for which I'll use dot scope dot update employee init equals function. I'll pass employee and write this as update and next scope dot employee equals employee. Okay, next we define the delete function, which is scope dot again control C, scope dot delete employee equals function employee and okay, here I write employee dot at the dollar delete open brace open flower bracket id employee dot id comma function here we write scope dot employees equals employee dot query. Okay, just close it. So with this I've defined the controller. I've defined the controller of AngularJS. Please save it. The next step I'll do is in the web app I'll create a index.html file, new file or HTML file. I'll just say index.html file. Click finish. Okay, just to save some time, what I'll do is I'll just copy paste the code which I've already built so that I can just save some time here. Control A, Control C. I'll run through this index.html. Okay, if you see this index.html, uh, the first step I'll do is to include the Angular module and the Angular resource libraries. Then you remember we created the app.js file wherein we registered the module. Then I've created the controller, the same controller name I'm including here, or I'm including that controller here, general.controller.js. And also this employee service where we created the factory, I've included that file here. Then I'm using the bootstrap, and please take note of this. The ng app equals to crude app. This should be the same name as your module. The module and this ng app, crude app should be same. Or also the controller, general controller. If you open the controller, this controller name and the index controller name should be same. So here in a form, I am basically displaying the employee name, salary and department. I'm giving a button, and also in another column I'll be basically displaying the results from the database. Whatever details that we enter in this particular form, those records will be displayed. uh, okay, please don't worry about this code. If I type this code, it will take me a lot of time, so I've just copy pasted this. If you want, what I did is I've already uploaded my entire project in this particular link, which is GitHub Varun CBV Angular. If you see this, if you see my screen, github.com/Varun CBV AngularJS Spring Boot REST JPA Hibernate and MySQL. If you open this link, you can download the entire Maven project, and if you open this, I've included the index.html also. So you can as well copy the code from there. So I've included the index.html, and the same code I'm running through here. So please save it. So with this, my Angular JS code, or the Angular JS codes and the index.html is ready. Now let's proceed with the development of the Java classes which are required to build the REST API and also the JPA and the model classes. The first step go to before we go to the development of the Java code, the first step is to include the Java dependencies. So in this pom.xml, we have to include the Spring Boot dependencies. So again, just to save some time, what I'll do is first I'll include the Spring Boot framework, which is Spring Boot Spring Framework version is 1.5.4. Next, I'll include the dependencies, Spring Boot dependencies. I'll just run through that Spring Boot dependencies. Okay, what are the dependencies I've included? The JPA, web, and the dev tools, MySQL connector. This is required to connect to the MySQL database, and also the starter test. So these are the dependencies which I've included. Please note that if you see here in the index.jsp, you have an error because it says Java x.servlet.http servlet was not found. Now, please observe here. Once I have included the dependencies and press save, Eclipse will import all the necessary dependencies, will include the necessary dependencies in this project. So, you can see on the right hand side corner, it has included all the dependencies and the error is gone. Okay. Next, before building the Java classes, we have to create the application.properties file. So how do I do that? In the source main resource, go to new, go to other, go to general, click on file, click on next. Here give the application.properties file, click finish. Here we have to provide the database details and all the necessary. Okay, what are the details I'm providing here? If you see in my screen, I'm providing spring.datasource.url, wherein I'm giving the JDBC my MySQL URL. The database name is, in my case, it's World. If your database name is anything other than this, please use that particular name. For my database, the username is root and the password is 123. So in your database, the respective username and password should be provided. What are the other things I'm using here? The Hibernate properties, which is I'm using a Hibernate dialect, MySQL dialect, and the Hibernate DDL dash auto is equals to update. So these are the properties which I've included in the application.properties. Okay. Next, to create the Java files, we don't have the Java folder here because it's missing. For the Java folders to appear, right click on your project, click on properties, go to Java build path and check. If you see, the last two options are unchecked here. So just check them and click apply and close. Now we can see the Java package. This is where we include all the Java classes. So let's start by creating my model class. How do I do that? Right click, new class. Okay, here give the package name as com dot let's start coding dot AngularJS REST API demo dot model. Okay, the class name I'm giving it as employee. Click finish. Okay, this is my class. The first thing I'll do is use the annotation at the rate entity. Next, I'll use the annotation at the rate table equals name equals employee, and last I'll use at the rate entity listeners open bracket auditing entity entity listener dot class. Okay, dot class. If you see, it's an error because the necessary imports or dependencies are not there. There are two ways of resolving this. Either you right click on quick fix and import javax.persistence entity, or the other way is use the shortcut Control Shift O. You can use the shortcut Control plus Shift plus O. Okay, so always use the javax.persistence dependencies. Click finish. Again, you can use Control Shift O. Here it says something is wrong. Okay, the spelling is wrong here. Entity listeners. Again, right click, quick fix, import the entity listeners, or as shortcut you can use Control Shift plus O. Control Shift O. Save. Okay. The next thing I'll do is I'll create a columns private integer ID. Okay. Next I'll create private string name. Next I'll create string department, and last I'll create private integer salary. Okay, I want this integer to be auto generated and unique, so I'll use the annotation @id, and next I'll use the annotation @generated value strategy equals generation type dot identity. Uh, Please import the necessary dependencies. Okay, with this my columns are all defined. Next I'll generate the getter and setter methods for this particular variables. How do I do that? Click on any of the variable, go to source, go to generate getters and setters, and select all and click OK. So now the setter and getter methods have been defined for all these fields. Please save. So with this my model class is ready. Okay, the next step I'll do is I'll define a repository. Okay, so let me define a repository. Right click on package, new, class. The package name instead of model I'll give as repository. Okay, and the class name I'll give as employee. Oh, sorry, this is an interface. Sorry. So right click, new, interface. The package name I'll give as repository, and the interface name as employee repository. Click finish. Okay, here I'll use extends JPA repository, open brace, pass employee, comma, integer. Now quick fix, just import the JPA repository from Spring Boot framework, Spring framework, and next import the employee model class. Right, here I'm using a method called employee find by name string name. Okay, my repository here is now defined. Next step is to define a employee service, or okay, right click on any of the package, new, class, give the package name as service, and give the class name as employee service. Click finish. Okay, the first step I'll do is use the annotation service, import the necessary dependencies. Okay, the next step is to create private employee repository okay. I just need to import this. Okay, the next step, I'll use the annotation @auto wired. Then I'll define public employee service. I'll pass this employee repository object here. And brace for our brace. This dot employee repository equals employee repository. Okay, just import the necessary dependencies for the auto wire. Okay, the next step, I'll define a save method, which is public employee save, to which I'll pass the employee object. Okay, import the employee model class. Okay, yeah, I'll be adding the return statement, which is if employee dot get id not equals null and employee repository dot access employee dot get id. Okay, here I'll define throw new entity exists exception. There is already existing entity with such id in the database. Okay, import the necessary dependencies. Fix. Okay, then return employee repository dot save employee. Okay, I've defined a save method. Save it. Next, I'll define a update method, which is public employee update. I'll pass the employee object again here. Okay, the same thing again here. I'll just copy this in case if it already exists. If not, I'll return the okay. We have defined the update method. Next, I'll define a find all public list employee and find all return employee repository dot find all. Okay, import the necessary dependencies for list. It should be java util.list. Please note that. Okay, I've defined a find all method. Next, I'll define public employee. Let's make use of this. Find one, to which I'll pass integer ID and okay, return employee repository dot find one. I'll pass the ID to this. Okay, and the last method I'll define is delete public void delete integer space ID. I'll use employee repository dot delete. I'll pass the ID. So with this I've defined save method, update, find all, find one and delete. Save the employee service. The next step is to create the REST controller, the class or the class which implements the REST controller. Let's do that. Okay, I'll right click, new class. Here the package name I'll give as controller. Okay, and the class name as employee resource. Click finish. Okay, the first step I'll use the annotation at the rate controller REST controller. Next, I'll use at the rate request mapping double quotes / API. Okay, just import the necessary dependencies. Alright, next again private employee service, control C, control V, import the employee service class. Next again public employee service control V space employee service one brace this dot employee service equals employee service. Okay, next we'll define the request method dot get at the rate request mapping open bracket value equals employee method equals request method dot get comma produces equals media type dot application underscore JSON underscore value close brace. Then implement the method public list employee get all employees okay. Here return employee service dot find all. Okay, so just import the necessary dependencies. Okay, fix fix. Please import the Spring Framework http.media type. Okay. Oh, quick fix to construct. Okay. Next, it's quick fix. Let me first import this quick fix util.list. Then you add the employee, and last you import the model class. So with this, I've defined the method request mapping value equals to employee, method is request method dot get, and it will return employee services dot find all. Next, let me define the post. So for that, I'll just copy this, Control C, the method which handles the post request. Okay, here I'll write post, then I'll define the method which is public response entity, to which I'll pass employee and create employee at the rate request body space employee and throws URI syntax exception. Okay, we'll use a try catch block. Okay, in this try I'll use employee result equals employee service dot save, to which I'll pass employee, okay, semicolon, then return response entity. Okay, let me first import this quick fix. Import all the necessary dependencies quick fix. Okay, quick fix. Okay, next let's use return entity dot dot created. This UI location will be new URI, open bracket, double quotes, / API / employee / double quotes plus result dot get ID dot. Okay, let me import this quick fix dot body, to which I'll pass result. What happened? This method catch, okay, return new response entity employee. Here I'll define http status dot conflict. Okay, so with this I've defined a method for handling the post request. Next, I'll define a method for handling the put request. Again, I'll just copy this, Control C, Control V. Instead of post, I'll use put, and then I'll define a method call. I'll just copy this. I'll just change the method name. Instead of create employee, I'll use create employee. Okay, here I'll use if, Control C, employee dot, sorry, it should be small e, employee dot get ID equals null, then return new entity. Instead of conflict, I'll just use dot not found. Okay, this is one thing. Again, I'll use a try catch block. In the try block, I'll use the same thing, which is employee here. Instead of save, I'll use dot update. Okay, instead of, I'll use update, the rest all is same. And again here I'll return the not found. Okay, now I've defined a method to handle the put request. The next step is to handle the delete method or delete request. For this I'll use I'll use the same thing. Okay, but here request value mapping value equals / employee / ID. Okay, and here instead of put method I'll use delete, and the rest all is same. I'll use this instead of returning employee, I'll just return void. Okay, the method name I'll define as delete employee, then I'll define @path variable integer space ID. Okay, just import the necessary dependencies. Okay, here we will use employee service control V dot delete ID and return response entity dot okay dot build. Okay, here it is, should be, sorry, it should be capital V, right? So with this I've defined my REST controller which handles the GET request, the POST request, the PUT request and the delete. Okay, let me save this. So with this all my uh, I've defined a model class, I've defined a repository, I've defined a service, and I've defined a controller. The last step I need to do is to define the Spring Boot Java class. The last step is to define the Spring Boot Java class, which will I'll define as class. The package name should be, let's start coding dot AngularJS REST API demo. Here I'll define as crude app, click finish. Okay, the first thing I'll do is define Spring Boot application. Okay, import the necessary dependencies. Next, define public static void main string args. We will make use of Spring application dot run. Here we will pass crude app dot class and the rest is the argument. Save it. Okay, so with this my coding is done. Please note that what I have done till now, I've defined the AngularJS coding and index.html. Then I've defined the necessary dependencies in the pom.xml. I've also defined application.properties file, and I've defined the model class, then the repository, then the service and the controller, which is employee resources. At last I've defined the Spring Boot application class. Now let me do a Maven build. How do I do that? Right click on the project, run as, click on Maven build. Here in the goals, please give clean install, click run. Okay, and if you see the console, it has failed because it says that I do not, perhaps you're running on a JRE rather than a JDK. Any new code should be compiled and executed using a JDK. So I don't have a JDK currently. How to, so to include JDK, go to Windows Preferences, go to Java, install JREs. You see, currently I have a JRE. Uncheck this, click on Add, click on Standard VM, click Next. Go to the JDK directory. In my case, my JDK is present in C program files, C program files, Java. In Java, it's present in JDK 1.8. Please select the directory which has the bin. Click Finish and click this JDK and click Apply and Close. Again, do a Maven build. Click Run as Maven build and check the console. Okay, now the build is success. Now I need to run this application on a Tomcat server. So let me add a Tomcat server. If you remember, I'm using a Tomcat 8.5 server. So I just need to configure. In my case, let me delete the old one. When you download the Tomcat server, generally it will be in this zip file. So just unzip it. Okay, now go to your servers in Eclipse, click on no servers are available, click on Apache, go to Tomcat 8.5 server, click on next, browse for the directory. In my case it is present in C drive, it's Apache. Check the folder or select the folder which has a bin, click OK, click finish. So now you can see here the server is being added, so just hold on for a few seconds. Okay, now the server is added. Let's run the Spring Boot application now. Right click, go to your Spring Boot class file, right click, run as Java application. You can check here check in the console if the server is started successfully or not. The server is started successfully. Alright, now let me run my application. Go to your Chrome, new tab, type http localhost 8080 index.html. So this is my application. Let me add a employee Varun CBV, salary 10,000, department ECE. Click submit. Okay, maybe there is some issue. What I'll do is just a minute, some typing issue. Control A, Control C, Control A, Control V, save. Uh, Control A, Control C. Control V, Control S. Last but not the least, here Control E, Control C. I'll just paste it back. Save. Okay. Let's do Maven build again. Right click, run as Maven build. Okay, let's do a refresh. Now let's see. For 10,000 department ECE. Okay. See, once I enter any employee, the employee details are populated here. Let me enter another employee, 5,000, and department as CSE. I'll say submit. Let me enter another employee, Navdeep, CB, salary 2000, department is EEE. Click submit. So I can see the details. Now I want to edit any of the details. Click on this particular image. So my details or the Varun CBV details are populated here. Here I'll change the salary from 10,000 to 12,000, and also from CSC ECE I'll change it to CSC. Let's see and update. So details are updated here. Okay, you can click on 6,000 and click on update. So details are updated here. So this is how we should run the application using AngularJS REST API, SpringBoot REST API, JPA Hibernate, and MySQL database. So hope this demo will be helpful for the people who want to build a similar application. Please note that I've uploaded all the code in this particular URL. If you go to this particular URL, github.com varuncbv AngularJS SpringBoot REST API, you can download the entire code and run the application. Alright, so that's it from my end. Last thing, if you like this video or any of my videos from my channel, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you.